Women. What about men baffles you the most? Story 1. When I approach women with problems I'm having, big or small, they seem to sympathize and empathize. When I approach men with the same problems, they try to take action to fix them. I genuinely wonder what the wiring difference is. Neither are bad responses, just noticeably different. I think a lot of it has to do with the type of problems we'll bring to other people. I'm basing most of this off personal experience, so apologies if it doesn't quite gel. I generally experience negative emotions because I'm encountering a problem. This can be anything from school kicking my butt to some communication issues with my usual group of friends. I want those negative emotions to go away, so I seek a way to solve the problem. Because the emotion is the result of circumstance, removing the circumstance will remove the emotion and allow me to resume normal, happy functioning. This solution-based attitude extends to things like venting after bad days at work. A series of bad things happen that include stress. When I complain to my friends about it, they respond by cracking open a beer and hanging out with me, creating good circumstances that counteract the stress. And if I had a problem that I couldn't solve, e.g. feeling really depressed about a certain story in the news or personal insecurities, I wouldn't burden anyone with it by trying to get them to help me find a solution when there isn't one. This is not to say that men don't empathize. In fact, our empathy and desire to ease your stress is why we tend to immediately start suggesting solutions when presented with a problem. The disconnect is that our ideas of what constitutes a problem worthy of bringing up are very different. Women, as far as I can tell, view a negative emotion as a problem in and of itself, and will deal with that problem by seeking empathy. When women seek out practical advice, they tend to do so separately from this empathy seeking. So let's say we have a scenario where a woman comes to a man with a problem. Both have the same goal, i.e. that the woman will feel better at the end of the conversation. However, their expectations of how the woman will be made to feel better are wildly different. The woman expects to move past the negative emotions that are the problem by commiserating with the man, like she would if she brought her problems to another woman, while the man expects to negate those same emotions by helping to rectify the situation that he assumes is their source, the way he would if another man came to him with a problem. Now, the stereotypical narrative of what follows is that the man proposes a solution, the woman gets mad at him for not being sympathetic, and the conversation rapidly de-evolves. The woman does not understand that offering a solution is in fact an expression of empathy, while the man does not understand that what's being sought is an explicit verbal expression of sympathy. As a result, the woman thinks the man is being callous and unsympathetic, while the man is left wondering why she bothered bringing up a problem in the first place if she didn't seem to want to do anything to make it go away. I really can't overstate how insane this can look from a man's perspective. The solution I found, which still have to force myself to think of, is this. When a woman comes to me with a problem, reframe the problem's solution mindset to think of the negative emotion as the problem to be solved, and explicit verbal expressions of sympathy as the practical solution to the problem. This works pretty well when my female friends come to me with issues that don't have practical solutions, like struggling with eating disorders. But I still have to work incredibly hard to hold my tongue when a woman presents something that might be actionable, such as relationship woes. Finally, I have some advice for any guys who read this far. Learn to recognize when a woman just needs to vent, and memorize the following phrase. I might not be able to give you advice on problem, but if you want to talk, I can listen. That's a very well thought out expression of the problem at hand. I think in very traditional senses, guys are meant to be leaders and problem solvers and are turned to whenever something bad happens and need things to go away. There are some times when women come to us with something that needs to be acted upon. I'm not saying this is typical, but I'm saying there are times. If a woman comes to us saying there's a spider in the next room, I don't think they want us to listen to them talk about how scared they are of seeing the spider and what freaks them out about it. They want us to go in there and make that spider not be there anymore. Story 2. How men can get into a knockdown, drag-out fight and then be best friends moments after. How does this even work? How do men drop grudges after they drop their fists? It's how we keep from talking behind our backs for a year about that shrew Susie. If a fight is well fought and lacks extreme cheap shots, a bit of respect is gained between friends. You might learn a thing or two about your buddy. You clear the air and you move on. If he's your best buddy, you already know what he's made of at his core, unless something substantial about him as a person changes. An argument is no reason to write him off or shun him. What freaks me out more is when girls say things like ex-best friend or we don't hang out anymore, like it's a casual thing. If me and one of my friends had such a huge fight that we no longer hung out, every guy would know, because that's how big a fight it would have to be. The kind of thing where other people might need to pick sides. I wouldn't need to say we don't hang out anymore. It would be a well-known unspoken fact, but that's just my feeling. This is very true. With the way some huge physical fights happen, you would think that the emotions behind them would be that deeply rooted as well. You'd think that after such a huge fight like that, those two guys are mortal enemies and would never talk or see each other again. I can understand the confusion there. I guess the emotion gets expressed in the fight. Once we get that out of our system, it's easy to drop what we were mad about. Story 3. What's the appeal of sucking on boobs? I mean, it doesn't actually do anything. I mean, it feels awesome for us, but what's the appeal? Men like boobs. Anything that involves interacting with them is a plus. I mean, it doesn't actually do anything for you, right? That's where you're wrong. It does a lot for me. It's a massive turn-on. I would suck on boobs daily if I could and not get tired. Because boobs. And if it makes you feel awesome, we get more boobs. It turns you on. We aren't all selfish. See, guys will understand if we say we like boobs and would like to suck on boobs. But have a guy say they like feet and like to suck on feet, then they get weird looks. I think some people try to connect it to getting breastfed when they were young. I think if that were the case, then girls would like to suck on boobs just as much as us guys. To have this girl say they don't understand our fascination with it proves that it doesn't just harken back to our childhood. Story 4. How do you guys do that thing where you take off your shirt with one hand from behind the neck? I'm serious. Other than that, I think I'm past the point of feeling baffled by anything you all do. Looser shirts, no boobs. Pretty much the same way we deal with other stuff. Brute force and ignoring the pain it might cause. This is exactly it. Pull as hard as possible. And when you hear a cracking noise from the t-shirt, be happy that you're a man and buy a shirt at $10 for a pack of 3. Same thing applies to tied shoes. Too tight to get in without untying them? Jam your index finger in there and make it happen, even if it feels like you might lose the finger for good. Story 5. How do you go through life having people know every time you get super turned on? It'd be so exhausting having to talk myself out of being horny just so people don't see it. If you're a woman, trust me, you're not aware of even 25% of the time it's happening. My 58-year-old boss lady hugged me at an office party and got hard as hell. Yeah, but for women, that's 100%. Unless you've got your hand down my pants, you'll have no idea I'm not listening to this boring meeting and fantasizing about getting fed. The social stigma and threats of jail help. It really is a chore. Sometimes you're just talking to a girl you're interested in. You can't even pay attention to what she says because you're too busy trying to keep yourself from getting hard. Like she'll be talking about her day, and I'm sitting there thinking of math equations and gardening commercials, desperate trying not to think of spicy time. We all ate often to keep this down to a minimum. Story 6. How much some equipment grows during erections. Like, holy hell, where did that come from? Where does it go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? Are all guys like that? I've also only seen a flaccid member once. I know showers supposedly exist, but have yet to encounter one. There's also like different levels of flaccid. And I'm not just talking about cold water. Like, I just had a semi, but now it's gone, versus I've been riding my bike for 3 hours, are two vastly different beasts. The equipment waxes and wanes, like a cosmic meat tube in the sky in your pants. Yeah, it's not binary. It's not one way or the other. We have to deal with all sorts of sizes. And it's not like we can predict the time of day when something is going to be this way or someday it's going to be the other. You just have to be aware of what could be and account for that. Story 7. This is a really random question, but one I've been asking myself for a while and am too ashamed to ask someone in person. When guys have to pee and poop, do you pee standing up and then sit down and poop? Or do you just sit and pee and poop together? 2 birds, 1 stone. This, you get used to pooping while standing. I think most guys only stand up to pee if that's the only thing they have to do. Otherwise, they sit. Sometimes sit anyway because it's nice to wear out the thigh area and browse forums for a few minutes. My cousin told me he sits to pee at home most of the time. I mocked him. Then I tried it and felt like an idiot. It's streets ahead. Rest the legs, no need to aim or clean up sticky secrete foreskin misfire, especially at night. I can go take a pee without ever opening my eyes. Story 8. that your equipment really does have a mind of its own. It's crazy how it just gets hard whenever it feels like it. The worst is when it goes flaccid during a certain spicy mood or experience. It's not your fault, ladies. It has nothing to do with you. Literally, he's gone and said, "Forget you, I'm out," to both of us. Our heads are swimming and ready to explode, and that jerkwad just packed his stuff and bounced. Thank you. I was so afraid I was the only one. I'm a dude. It's awful, especially in the junior high school years. Literally nothing you can do to stop it, just doing its own thing, can be seriously embarrassing. Heck, man, I'm freaking 33 and it still happens. Walking into the store? Random boner. Walking out of work to lunch? Random boner. Go to get my hair cut? Okay, that one is actually less random and more the boobs pressing against the back of my neck. But thank God for those giant aprons they give us to hide the giant boner, right? In order to cover up a random erection, I had to faint in class just to make it go away. I was wearing shorts and called to the other end of the classroom. No way to cover myself. I pretended to be hooked up in my chair and hit the floor like a sandbag. The teacher freaked and tried to help me up, but it was still there, so I tripped on the way up and fell back down. Then I said I needed to stretch for a bit. Subtle wasn't an option. I think those times are necessary in a dude's life, as this is where everyone learns to master the waistband tuck. Story 9. The ones that assume they need to have money to impress me. Back when I was dating, I occasionally had guys tell me they wanted to spend time with me, but couldn't afford to take me someplace nice. It seemed to weird some of them out, or at least confuse them when I told them that if they wanted to spend time with me, A, we could go someplace cheap, B, we could go someplace free, C, we could go someplace reasonable and each pay for our own, or hey, novel concept, D, I just got paid and can take you out. Most of them took it like an insult. In the meantime, I'm over here like if I'm impressed or not has literally nothing to do with the contents of your wallet. What the hell? Many men judge their self-worth on their work. Since money comes from work and work equals worth, no money equals no self-worth. It's a self-esteem thing. Also, online dating statistics indicate that the two most important factors for most women are how hot the guy is and how much money he has. This one is a hit or miss for me. I once went out with a girl that later on complained to the person that set us up about how cheap I was when I took her out. We just went out for coffee. She obviously was expecting something a lot more. I don't think the person that posted this is of the same mind as a lot of other girls. Not all girls, but a lot of them. Story 10. It baffles me how wearing boxers doesn't make your pants look like they've just been stuffed with cloth, which is essentially what is happening. It's pretty thin cloth. It certainly would if we wore women's jeans. But even our skinny jeans aren't as skin-tight as typical women's jeans. Our jeans are also usually built more rugged with thicker denim, which helps hide the boxers. By the way, if dudes aren't smoothing their boxers out before zipping their pants up, they're doing it wrong. This kid in my PE class in middle school would wear skinny jeans and pull them up with intent to bundle 70% of his boxers above the jeans. It looked horribly uncomfortable, and I can't imagine the wedgie he walked around with all day. Story 11. How their manspheres manage to age quicker than they do. They've seen some stuff, man. They see their closest friend get beaten to within an inch of his life almost daily, sometimes twice a day. My manspheres have gray hair. Only my manspheres. I have a question in relation to this one. It is why my pet is always more tan than me, even though it never sees direct sunlight. You know how your day gets hard sometimes? Ever notice it always has the same amount of skin on it, but sometimes it's big and most of the time it isn't? Well, the skin stretches, so when your equipment is at rest, the pigment will be more smushed together. Dark equipment. Gravity is a shrew. Story 12. That sometimes during a conversation, you can really not hear the other person. I can be intently listening to someone and they can say something and it just sounds like gibberish to me. Start thinking too much about how important it is to listen that you neglect to actually listen. When I'm listening to someone, don't process it in real time. I sort of establish a cache and wait for the complete thought to fully engage and process that. It's like waiting for a YouTube video to fully buffer before hitting play. If you change the subject halfway through, the cache dumps everything and starts over, even though it didn't actually process what you said yet. The result is that I have no idea what you were talking about, even though I was listening intently. I can't think and hear at the same time, dude. You've just explained in a single sentence a notion I've been trying to communicate with my wife for a decade. You have to be careful that it really is a conversation and not a soliloquy. Man, that makes a lot of sense to me. I've been trying to figure out how to explain it too. That metaphor about the video buffer really helps crystallize crystallize it. I want to get the whole thought together first before I form any opinions or process it. That's a really good way to describe it. Story 13. In this thread, women wonder about man spheres a lot. Well, to be fair, as dudes, we never talk about them at all. All we do is talk about how it sucks to have them be struck and how sensitive they are. That's it, besides the occasional shaving story. They're under our equipment and we rarely see them, probably because even when we look in the mirror, we're too focused on our equipment to bother with the ugly sack underneath. They just sweat and get in the way. Now, women? Not only do they smack them in the butt during spicy time all the time, but just as we take an interest in what's down there on a woman because we don't always get to see it in the mirror after getting out of the shower, they too are curious. They see man spheres and wonder about them. However, we never speak of them, so they know little to nothing about them, just that they're sensitive, sweaty, hairy, and home of sperm. Story 14. They can turn anything into a spicy innuendo. Well, at least my significant other can. I was asked by a Frenchman to explain the concept of a pun. He was not familiar with the word. After some thought, I said, a pun is like a double entendre without the innuendo. He gave that some thought. His response was priceless. With a very French shrug, he said, Why bother? Why bother? Oh, ho, 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 oui, oui. Don't pin the blame entirely on us. I had a friend comment on how she was losing weight and now her waist and pants were a bit more loose. I used to be able to fit 2 fingers in, but now I can fit my whole hand. I mean, come on, am I just supposed to ignore that? That was a softball down the middle. It would have been a wasted opportunity if you didn't swing. You set him up, I knock him down, Aladdin. Obligatory innuendo. Story 15. Being able to fap when you're not even a little turned on. Just doing it because you're bored. That's my secret, Cap. I'm always passionate. You won't like me when I'm passionate. It's really a blessing and a curse. Okay, I have 10 things that I need to get done in the next 2 hours. I can average about 12 minutes on each and or I could jerk it for a half hour, then just do everything faster. Yes, spend an hour searching for the right corn. Okay, now if I can just get off in the next 10 minutes and then instantly clean up and then do each thing in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I can still do this, and I'm late for something important. I think it gets chalked up to just any kind of habit that people do to procrastinate. It's a blessing and a curse partially because our equipment is on the outside. For us, it's very easy access. I mean, we just talked about how it really shows everybody that we're turned on anyway. Sometimes we do it just to get one more thing out of the way. It's just another task we add onto our list. Story 16. How can you guys take a dump for like 20 minutes? They literally bring like a book and a phone and make a day of it. For girls dumping, taking longer than 15 seconds means there's a problem. It's our little cave of solitude. As a husband and father, the toilet is my only break from the chaos. I'd stay in there forever if I could on some days. You dump in 15 seconds? You just pop out a single turd and you're done with it? That's no fun. Live a little. As a guy, I view bathroom usage the same way I view bringing in groceries. It's going to be quick. It's going to be painful. It's only going to take one trip. Story 17. I'm a guy, and something about me confuses myself. Why do my man spheres have a better tan than my body when they never get any sun? Your equipment is stretched, so you're seeing it at a shrink state. The skin is closer together, making it look darker. Story 18. My girlfriend asked me once, when a guy has to pee, does it feel the same as when a girl has to pee? How are we meant to answer this? The same way as when we're getting lectured about the pain of childbirth. Yeah, this girl is asking a question like they think we're going to be able to answer. We don't know how it feels for a girl to pee. We don't know how it feels for a girl when they get their period. We don't know how it feels to have to put on a bra and have breasts all day. Well, some guys don't know that. Story 19. It baffles me that your sacs are always moving. I've seen one once. The skin is just moving all the time. What the hell? I know, right? It's like staring at a lava lamp. You know, this is a very, very good comparison. Story 20. Depending on temperature or humidity, they take many various forms. We're privileged to be able to observe this phenomenon and find it endlessly fascinating. Depending on temperature or humidity, they take many various forms. This isn't even my final form. Story 21. Do men just like to crush their sacks when riding a bike, horse, etc.? They're not as low as you think, more to the front. Can you imagine your spheres hanging in between your legs? I've never had a problem on a bike. We must have this sixth sense that enables us to know where our sacks live. The worst issue I had was surfing once. I was dropping from a standing to a push-up position on the board, kind of like doing the worm, and happened to drop right onto one of my nuts, which was held in place by my wetsuit. It was excruciating. It's called proprioception. You know where your man spheres are just like you know where your hands are. I can agree that we have a kind of natural sense about where everything is. There have been those days where we have been hurt in that area. If you felt the pain we felt, you would develop a quick sense about where everything is too. We do not want to experience that type of pain again. It's that bad. Story 22. Why must you hump me when I'm bent over? Instinct, baby. It's a joke, but it's really not. Every time a hot girl bends over, that voice in the back of my head starts up, bro, go hump that. Then I'm all like, nah, that would be socially unacceptable. And the head voice is all, well, just think about it then. And I'm like, I'm glad you're good at compromising when I'm sober. Story 23. How can you be in the middle of a conversation 1 second and just zone out a second later? What? Stop yammering and get to the point. Problem solved. God, I can't stand people who don't summarize. We don't need the names and dates of birth of everyone in your freaking story. Story 24. Why do men, or maybe just my son and his dad, flush the toilet before they're done peeing? I've never gotten a complete answer from them. It's like it's some secret guy code thing. For me, it's a game of timing. Can I time my flush to go down perfectly with my pee ending? I agree with this. For me, it almost feels like I'm trying to consolidate my time best. If I have to wait to make sure everything goes down, I don't feel like I'm using my time well. If I can start the flush just as I'm finishing, I can walk away quicker. Sometimes guys are all about efficiency. Story 25. The ability to wag one's equipment and the look of pride when doing so. That's not pride, that's delight. It's just an enjoyable feeling. My girlfriend can't get over helicopter equipment. That's what baffles her. Story 26. That underwear flap, do you actually use it? Or do you just pull your equipment out of your underwear to pee? Because it seems to be that I be fumbling to get my equipment through the flap. Yeah, I'll agree on this one. I have never used that flap at all. It's far too cumbersome. It's very inconvenient, especially if we have to go really bad. I don't know why that design is there either. Maybe someone who makes clothing can answer it for us, so we can tell them they're wrong. Story 27. Never do that while urinating. Sometimes when I'm laying down, I'll pull my stuff through and let it hang out. I'm not sure why. 'Cause it feels good to be free. Story 28. A man's need to stand up and pee is awe-inspiring. I am an ICU nurse and have seen men try to rip out breathing tubes, IVs, pull themselves up when paralyzed, all in the name of standing up to pee. Sir, you have a catheter in, means nothing to a man who feels the need to stand up and pee. Every time I hear the word catheter, I scream a little inside. Please, I'd rather have my bladder rupture. I hate that word too. I once had a kidney stone. I had to have a catheter put in. I honestly don't know if the pain was worse with having the catheter put in or with finally having to pass the stone. Stuff of nightmares. Story 29. Why, when you take an equipment picture, must you squeeze the shaft? What did it do to you? Does it owe you money? Did it unalive your dad? It embarrassed us through puberty when it liked to get hard at the worst possible times. We're merely seeking revenge. Story 30. I just read this topic to my girlfriend. She responds, the fact that I can say boob and you will get a boner. Did you get a boner? I got 2. Why would you do this to me? I'm at work. Boob. Capital B, top view. O, front view. Small b, side view. Dude. Story 31. How absolutely nonchalant dudes can be about medical issues. My arm? Hell, it's a crazy glue band-aid. Would panicking help in any way though? Thought process. 1. What's going to solve the problem? 2. Do that. One could talk about how men are supposed to suppress their feelings and how bad it is in society. I think that's a part of it. We still have stuff to do and we can't let anything like injury get in our way. We're almost proud about being able to work through the pain. Story 32. What do they do with their equipment when they sit down to poop? It goes into the bowl. You have to be careful not to let it touch anything in there though. Worst feeling ever. I usually just sling it over my shoulder. Story 33. How little they cry. I've been married for almost 12 years and have seen my husband cry exactly 3 times. He's probably seen me cry at least once a month. I've only seen my dad cry once. Story 34. how much their minds wander. Today at lunch, two of my friends had an argument about male cows and bulls. I think one of your friends might just be dumb. I don't know if this has anything to do with about how guys don't express their emotions to each other. We will wander and talk about just about anything we feel is worthy of having a discussion about for at least 5 minutes. Maybe it leads to a problem to a solution. Maybe we're just exercising the creative parts of our minds. Maybe we're suppressing the feelings of having our father not like us when we were growing up. You don't know. Story 35. I feel a lot better reading this thread because it seems like most women are just completely in the dark. Story 36. As a guy reading this, it went from equipment jokes to meaningful life lessons too darn quick. And this is the flip side about us talking about whatever. I think part of it is the anonymity. When we're not talking face to face, we'll be able to unload about just about anything. And yes, that was a double entendre. You're welcome. Story 37. This thread has some of the best responses ever for a post without a serious tag, like genuinely thought-provoking or interesting ideas. Story 38. So much gold here, you'd think that the Discovery Channel would start a show. Story 39. This thread is incredible. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.